Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 3 patch 2.7 Season 23 Crusader build guide. The Season 23 starter set for Crusader is Rolands, so we present here the best Rolands build. This is the Sweepsader, and patch 2.7 has now introduced individual leaderboards for every set or non-set. That means that if you want, you could try to top the Roland leaderboards, and this will be the build to do that with. Now, this is not the most powerful Crusader build overall. If you want to migrate into that, you can check out this build guide here for the Aegis of Valor Crusader. But again, Rolands is the starter set, so before you can build up your Aegis of Valor, you will be getting your pieces of Rolands. Now, the gameplay footage you're seeing here is a Greater Rift 130 recorded by top player Northwar, and you can follow along or reference the written version of this guide written by Northwar on maxroll.gg, link in the video description. In this video, we're going to cover the gear, the skills, the gameplay, and now the follower with the follower rework that you'll want to rock this build. And let's dive right in with looking at the Roland set. The two-piece bonus, every use of Shield Bash and Sweep Attack reduces the cooldown of your laws and defensive skills by 1 second. While Rolands can be built to also go with Shield Bash, this is a sweep build. Four-piece bonus, increases the damage of Shield Bash and Sweep Attack by 17,500%. And the six-piece, every use of Shield Bash or Sweep that hits an enemy grants 75% increased attack speed and 15% damage reduction for 8 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Now, while it is 5 stacks at 15% each, these stacks do not add up additively, but rather multiplicatively, meaning instead of 75%, it ends up being 55.6% damage reduction once you've accumulated 5 stacks. The damage bonus, on the other hand, is additive, meaning that 75% times 5 does in fact turn into 375% increased damage at 5 stacks. Now we're going to want to equip 5 pieces of this set and a Ring of Royal Grandeur in our cube. This reduces the number of items needed for set bonuses by 1. You want to get a Ring of Royal Grandeur by doing Act 1 bounties. Yes, you can also get it from Act 4 bounties, but if you are target farming the Ring of Royal Grandeur, Act 1 bounties is what you want to do. Open that bounty bag, hope for a Ring of Royal Grandeur. Act 4 bounty bags can contain items from any other act, meaning your odds of getting a Ring of Royal Grandeur are diluted if you're looking just for the Ring of Royal Grandeur, Act 1 bounty bags. Of course, before you get your Ring of Royal Grandeur, just wear the full 6 pieces of Rolands. But the reason we want to get that Ring of Royal Grandeur is because we want to work in Captain Crimson set into this build. We're going to get the belt and then either the pants or the boots. The two-piece bonus reduces the cooldown of all skills by 20%, reduces all resource costs by 20%, that's really going to help us spam out our sweeps. And then the three-piece bonus, damage dealt is increased by your percentage of cooldown reduction, and damage taken is reduced by your percentage of resource cost reduction. We want to be stacking both with this build, so that's really powerful synergy. Next, we'll want to get the Golden Flens Two-Handed Flail. Sweep Attack restores 6 Wrath for each enemy hit and has his damage increased by 300%. Sweep Attack by itself costs 20 Wrath, so being able to get back 6 every time we hit will really help us spam this out, particularly when we're facing a lot of targets. Now in this case, we're putting the Golden Flens in the cube and we're going to equip a Furnace in our main hand. However, the Golden Flens is the far more important item. The Furnace will add a bit of damage, but the Golden Flens is adding a huge amount of damage. The ideal setup is Golden Flens in the cube, but before that, you want to cube the one that rolls worst. If you have a really good Golden Flens and a really bad Furnace, put the Furnace in the cube. Ultimately though, you're going for an equipped Furnace and a cubed Golden Flens because the Golden Flens' legendary power rolls on a range, 225 to 300%. So you're far more likely to get a good Furnace, and the Furnace has a slower attack speed, meaning every hit is going to be delivering a higher amount of damage. So pound for pound, resource consumption per resource consumption, the Furnace is delivering a higher punch at a slower speed, meaning you're going to run out of resource less quickly, which, assuming no loss of resource, equalizes over time. But with limited resource, you're going to want to deliver a stronger punch over the course of fewer hits, because every hit always costs you the same amount of resource. Next, we're going to want a Denial Shield. This is a regular shield and not a Crusader shield. Each enemy hit by your sweep attack increases the damage of your next sweep attack by 125%, stacking up to 5 times. So these are all the big important damage multipliers. These are the items you need for this build, but we're going to work in some other items that'll further help us out. In our cube, we're going to take an Aquila Cuirass. While above 90% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. With the amount of resource cost reduction we'll be stacking, we should have this most of the time. For our bracers, we're going to take Strong Arm Bracers. Enemies hit by knockbacks suffer 30% increased damage for 6 seconds, and we'll be taking a skill that will trigger our Strong Arms. And we'll also work in a Endless Walk combo. The Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose, Amulet, and Ring. While moving, you take less damage. While standing still, you deal more damage. This is situational damage and toughness when we need it, because when we're moving, it tends to be that we are either fleeing or repositioning. When we're standing still, we're dealing damage. Then lastly, we're taking a Convention of Elements. We'll deal more damage while we are in a damage window. Now we'll go over exactly what we want on every piece of gear, but first, let's take a look at our skills. So, the star of the show here is Sweep Attack Blazing Sweep. 20 Wrath cost. But we sweep an area in front of us, dealing damage, and with the Blazing Sweep rune, enemies hit by the attack will catch on fire for 120% weapon damage over 2 seconds. We're going to be attacking very, very rapidly with this build, and Blazing Sweep damage over time that burn with the fire will stack with itself, and the damage of that damage over time effect will scale with our attack speed. Now remember that Rolands is buffing our attack speed, so this is what makes Blazing Sweep the most powerful rune on Sweep Attack. For defense and mobility, we're taking Iron Skin Flash. On a 30-second cooldown, you gain 50% damage reduction for 4 seconds, and the Flash rune gives us a move speed buff and the ability to move through enemies unhindered. Also for mobility and control, we're taking Steed Charge, Draw, and Quarter. Steed Charge, obviously a mobility skill where you horse around for a couple seconds, but the Drawn Quarter rune is what turns this into a control power. Now, we shine against groups of enemies, our weakness is single target. That's why we're taking a Furnace. That's more damage against elites. That helps make up for that weakness. But when we're fighting a group of enemies, when there's a couple stragglers left, we don't want to be staying there to finish them off. We want to Steed Charge and pull them with us into the next group of enemies to be more efficient in our death bringing. Next, we're taking Laws of Valor Unstoppable Force. Passively, this gives us attack speed. Actively, it gives us even more attack speed, and the Unstoppable Force rune reduces the wrath cost of our skills by 50% for 5 seconds. This is going to really help us spam those sweeps. Next, we'll want to take Akarat's Champion Prophet. There's a reason you see this in almost every Crusader build. It's just so powerful. 35% increased damage, increased wrath regeneration, and the Prophet rune, 150% additional armor, and a free life. We're going to want to maximize our uptime on Akarat's Champion, so we're stacking a ton of cooldown reduction. Then lastly, we're taking Condemn Vacuum. We don't care about the damage this deals. This is purely for that crowd control. This is what will trigger our Strong Arm Bracers. We're gonna suck enemies in. It's also for the positioning. We want to bring enemies into our sweep range. This will also trigger the Strong Arm, so we're doing more damage to them. As for our passives, Heavenly Strength. You can wield a two-handed weapon in your main hand while bearing a shield in your offhand. Damage dealt reduced by 20%. We need to take this because we are holding, in either case, a two-handed weapon in one hand. We're going to take Finery. Gain 1.5% strength for every gem socketed into your gear. Very robust Crusader passive used in many builds. It is an offensive and defensive buff in one. Indestructible. Extra life. When you receive fatal damage, you instead become immune to damage, gain 35% increased damage, and gain a bunch of life per kill, 60-second cooldown. In general, while this is on cooldown, you want to be more careful to avoid dying, especially if you're hardcore. But with Akarat's Champion Prophet, we have 2 free life abilities. Then lastly, Holy Cause. The amount of damage dealt by your weapon is increased by 10%. And whenever you deal holy damage, you heal up to 1% of your total life. Now, we're not really dealing holy damage with this build. This is a fire build, but we're taking it for that 10% increased damage. All right, now let's go over exactly what we want on every piece of gear. We'll note that cooldown reduction is a big priority. We want to maintain as much uptime as possible on Akarat's champion. We're ideally trying to reach a 64.5% cooldown reduction breakpoint. We want to get life per hit on our weapon because that is going to be our main source of recovery, and because we're attacking so quickly, we're going to get that life back very rapidly. Great for sustain, and we're aiming for 1 resource cost reduction roll. Combined with our other sources of resource cost reduction, that should be all we need. So, on our shoulders, strength, area damage, cooldown reduction, resource cost reduction. On our helm, strength, crit chance, sweep attack damage. Amulet, fire, crit chance, crit damage. Gloves, crit chance, crit damage, attack speed, cooldown reduction. On our chest, strength, all resist, reduced damage from elites. Now note that we're not getting vitality here. We're preferring to get other stats that bring us more damage mitigation. This is to make our recovery more effective. The more our toughness comes from damage mitigation rather than pure life, the more bang for our buck we get from life per hit. On our bracers, fire damage, strength, vitality, crit chance. For our belt, strength, vitality, all resist, life percent. For our pants, strength, vitality, all resist. Our boots, strength, vitality, all resist, sweep attack damage. For our compass rose ring, strength, crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction. For our convention of elements, crit chance, crit damage, area damage. For our weapon, 10% damage, area damage, life per hit. For our offhand, strength, vitality, cooldown reduction, crit chance. For our gems, diamond in the helm for cooldown reduction. For pants and chest, if you want more toughness, diamonds for all resist. If you want more damage, rubies for armor. For our legendary gems, we're getting a Bane of the Trapped, more damage against crowd controlled enemies. Once you get that gem to 25, it's going to be crowd controlling all enemies in our sweep attack range, so this is just a flat damage multiplier. We'll also get a Gogok of Swiftness. We're attacking so rapidly that we're going to build up those stacks really quickly. Those give us more attack speed, dodge chance, and cooldown stacking up to 15 times. This is going to help us reach our cooldown reduction breakpoint. And then lastly, a Bane of the Stricken. The more you attack an enemy, the more damage you deal to that enemy, and you deal 25% increased damage to Rift Guardians. Because we're attacking so fast, this is a build that especially benefits from a Bane of the Stricken, and because the build is so weak against Rift Guardians. Still though, if you're doing speed content, you don't want a Bane of the Stricken, you're better off with a Bane of the Powerful. For our follower, we're going to want to take the Enchantress. For her skill setup, we're going to take Temporal Pulse. This attack applies a slow to enemies. We're going to want Prophetic Harmony for the cooldown reduction it confers. This is pretty much the entire reason that we're actually taking the Enchantress. That cooldown is very important to help us reach our breakpoint. We're going to take Powered Shield for the damage reduction and armor increase. And then we're going to take Fate's Lasp for yet another cheat death, for a total of 3 cheat deaths. For her gearing, we're going to give her the Smoking Thurible Immortality Relic. And because of that, we actually don't really care about what stats we put on her gear other than intelligence. Ram intelligence everywhere you can because her abilities scale off of intelligence. That means that even in her sockets for her jewelry, you're going to put topazes for more intelligence. As a secondary gearing priority, you would go with attack speed just so that she can trigger procs more often. As for her items, Flavor of Time, this will double the duration of pile-on effects. This emanates to us, meaning this being on the follower will be treated as though we have this legendary power equipped. Only a few items emanate, not all legendary powers. Another one that does is Nemesis Bracers. Shrines will spawn an enemy champion. We click on a shrine, it treats it as though we're wearing the Nemesis Bracers. We're going to give her an Oculus Ring. This does not emanate to us, but it doesn't have to. when a monster dies, there's a chance that a golden pool will appear on the ground. Stand in that pool and deal up to 85% increased damage. For her other ring, if you can't be bothered to run a convention of elements and you want more toughness instead, give her a unity and wear a unity yourself. While she's invulnerable, which should be all the time thanks to the token, this will be treated as though we have 50% damage reduction. We're going to give her Ice Climbers to make her immune to immobilize and freeze effects, a Mempo of Twilight, and 2 pieces of Cane Set, and a Witching Hour, and a Talrashas, all for attack speed. And lastly, homing pads, not terribly important, but these emanate to us, so if ever we want to town portal out, we can do so without interruption. Now, as for the gameplay, beyond the obvious, if you want to time this with your convention cycle, what you're going to do is 2 seconds into your holy rotation, so halfway through, you're going to start your pull. So this is when you're planning where you're going to be grouping enemies. You're going to pop your Condemn Vacuum to start sucking them in. It takes a couple seconds for it to fully come into effect. Then 3 seconds into your lightning rotation, you're going to stand firm in the midst of the enemies you've just pulled together. Don't move. This is going to let your endless walk switch from damage mitigation into damage dealing mode. Then 3 seconds into your physical rotation, you're going to activate your Condemn Vacuum again. This will pull enemies tighter in around you and activate your Strong Arms debuff. And then at the start of your fire rotation, you want to ensure you're in Akrat's champion. That's when you start bringing the pain with your sweep attack. At some point, an Oculus pool will appear, hopefully really close by. Move into it. If you have to, use your Iron Skin Flash to get into there. That's going to be another damage amp source. And then your fire rotation is done. That's when you start the cycle anew by, at the start of your holy cycle, using Steed Charge to advance and taking survivors along with you. As for your Paragon point priority, you want to max out your move speed, then dump everything into strength, although if you feel squishy and you're dying even despite your 3 extra lives, you can put points into vitality until you get around 600,000 life. For offense, cooldown first, then crit chance and crit damage, maintaining a global 1-to-10 ratio between the two, then attack speed. For defense, all resist, armor, life percent, life regeneration, and lastly for utility, area damage, life per hit, resource cost reduction, and then pickup radius. And that's gonna wrap up this video. But do be sure to have checked out our video on the best builds of Season 23, as well as our video on speed leveling at the start of a new season. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.